Welcome to another live episode of Halftime Adjustments. Fellas, we back, man. Welcome back, fellas.
Yes, sir.
Tighten up, baby. Tighten up.
Tighten up, man. The new league year has started. We are back. We appreciate all the love and support of the show. Hopefully you guys are able to get in tonight and get your questions and comments in. We got a lot to talk about, gentlemen, as the new league year has began. A lot of people complaining about J-Rob and his GMing, if you want to say it that way. And I was one of the people that wasn't happy at first, but I must say in the last couple of days that I'm impressed with what he's done. And so coming into this offseason, gentlemen, we knew there was a lot of questions, right? There was some needs, particularly in the wide receiver room, the O-line, the running back position, tight end, to say the least. And many folks wanted somebody added to the quarterback room. we'll talk a little bit more about that in a minute. But guys, so coming off a 12-5 season with an early exit from the playoffs, many questions, right, surrounding the Titans, particularly in the cap space arena, which we'll get into tonight a little bit. I'll get Jay Lucas. He's our resident expert on the cap space. And then, with that, guys, offensive chemistry and creativity, we've talked that to death on this show. And who was coming back for the 2022 season. So I'm going to start with you, G. Will. Let's talk about some of these coaching changes because we lost the linebacker coach. And, that might be a telltale sign of what happened to Rashad Evans and John Brown.
Absolutely. When I saw that we let my man go, I was like, okay, obviously it had to be something because he's been here a total of 2 seasons, and Rashad Evans' play and John Brown's play has deteriorated both seasons. So I'm not exactly sure what's going on. Don't get me wrong. I know injuries played a part in it as well, but it's like from what you saw of Rashad Evans, especially in his second year, you really thought he was going to make that leap, and instead he just fell backwards. It was bad when, first of all, David Long Jr. takes a starting spot, and then you bring in Zach Cunningham, and he immediately takes a starting spot, and Rashad Evans was healthy. Mm-hmm. So it's just one of those things where you had to come to the understanding that it had to be something, and obviously it was the coaches. They made the change. I'm interested to see what the new inside LB coach is going to be like, what he's going to do. Also, on some of the coaches change on the offensive side of the ball, I'm interested to see how bringing in the former OC for Houston is going to help Ty down and be more creative with his play calling or with his play structure. Mm-hmm. Because, let's be honest about it, man. Last year, everybody knew what we were running when they lined up against us on the field. It's just whether or not we were going to execute it better than they could stop it. And as we saw in the playoff game, that wasn't happening. So the coaching changes, man, I'm pretty interested in seeing how that's going to work out. I was glad to see that we had to keep Jim Schwartz. Mm-hmm. Because obviously his effect on the defense was telling. I think he helped out with Sean quite a bit. And then I'm trying to think. Other than that, I really, coaches-wise, because I was going to say Anthony Midget redeemed himself, man. I thought he redeemed himself last season. So, he's still here. So we'll see how that goes. But there's going to be a lot of changes. So we're going to see how well he can bring the secondary up to speed. I've never been that fond of him, but we'll see what happens.
Jay Lou, I'm surprised G. Witt didn't mention the extension for Vrabel and J-Rob, which I know you got something to say about it. But looking at the coach, the linebacker coach that they hired, Bobby King, another one of the Vrabel buddies from the Texans. He coached under Vrabel in 2017 as linebacker coach, and last year he coached the defensive line for the Texans. So, Jay Lou, what are your thoughts about what has happened in the front office so far in this offseason?
I think the under the radar thing that our front office was able to do is the player personnel guy. I can't think of his name right now, but he was in the running to be some GM spots. He didn't get one. Yeah, and that would have been a big loss for the team because he quiet as it's kept, this J-Rob has built a good scouting department since he's taken over the Titans. So, I look at some of those type of things to help with these players. As far as the coaching staff, I think you're good to see some continuity on the team. We are bringing back, for the most part, a coaching staff with that was 13-4 last year, #1 seed with 91 players. I'll tell you the one opportunity that I think, and I've got Tim Kelly, I think is his name, that they brought in to help with offense. You really hope that he comes in and has that. He's the pseudo offensive coordinator, similar to what Jim Schwartz was. You hope that you see that on offense. I think we'll be able to learn, just like we saw last year with the defense. We could see some of Schwartz's footprints in the beginning. I think we'll learn real quick if Tim has got his handprints on the offense. But I'll tell you, I'm still not sold on special teams. I don't know what Craig Ottman, I think is his last name. I don't know what he has on them down at Baptist Sportsplex for him to stick around, because special teams, as quiet as it's kept, was a struggle last year. And I mean, you gotta look really into it. Kern didn't have his best year, maybe injured or whatnot. Fat Randy did, stabilize that position. But when you start looking at our coverage on punt team and on kickoff, it wasn't what we have come to see. So I was kind of shocked that one stuck around, but it shouldn't shock you, because as you mentioned earlier, Vrabel is just like they say, he's a player's coach. He's a coach's coach too. He keeps his buddies around. So you hope that we see some tweaks there, but it'll be interesting to see. I agree with you, Ed. I think Midget came around again. The defense having one coordinator, I think that helped with a lot. And I know we'll get into the players here a little bit later, but you're really going to be able to see what Midget can do now, because you think about it, KB is his veteran. I know they signed Buster Screen back, but KB is the veteran of that team, of that DB. So we really will see how coaching comes into play now.
Yeah, and Amani Hooker, if you can call him a veteran, because he's been a few years now in the system. And so him and KB, the longest tenured guys in that secondary besides Screen, like you mentioned. And so it's going to be very interesting what these guys are going to be doing. So I'm going to get some comments in. Will says, gee, Whit, you looking kind of lean though, buddy.
Yeah, I wish.
Appreciate you joining us tonight, Dion, and everybody who's joining in. And so let's talk about some of the players not retained, guys, because there was some folks that we had listed that we talked about. A couple of them that we kind of were iffy on, but let's just take a look at the players not retained. So it hadn't officially came out yet, but Anthony Ferkster, no word on him yet, but I don't think they signed him back. Maybe they do. I think he and we talked about him a lot later on in the season, especially that when Julio and AJ Brown were out, he could not step up and fill that role of a go-to guy, and he was only able to really play successfully when those two guys came back. And so, not a big loss there. Deontay Foreman, gents, what do you think about that, G Whit? I mean, similar mold to Derrick Henry, but he was effective while he was there, right?
Yeah, and I'm in all honesty, I got a little mixed emotion about him, and to be truthful about it, I was hoping they were going to keep him, but I think that what they're looking at from an offensive standpoint is that with Deontay Foreman, man, you basically have the same type of running back that you have with Derrick Henry,
right?
A power back. I thought it was good because he was, as far as this past season goes, because I think he got into Florida offense, ran the ball well. Again, like we said on previous broadcasts, we wish they had used him more against the Bengals because he was being effective. But I think that's one of the reasons why they didn't keep him, was simply because, and I think that's one of the reasons why his agent didn't advise him to go ahead and go to Carolina, was because I don't think they're going to pay him that much, and two, I just don't think he was going to see the field that much, being the same type of running back as Derrick Henry, and they wanted somebody else who's actually going to be a change of pace. And keeping Dontrell Hilliard, I think, was a good move on their part because of his he's good at pass pro, which is a huge deal. And again, he's younger and everything, so that helps out a whole lot too.
Yeah, and J. Lou, to have two power backs on the squad. I mean, I don't know if you really need that, but again, he was a good find last year. Came in. I think the biggest loss to me outside of him is Kari Blasingame.
Yeah.
So maybe I'm in the minority. I would have loved to see them keep Foreman, but let's remember Foreman was on the streets until about week 10, 11, somewhere in there. So, I'm as a fan, I'm glad to see him get a second chance. And, going to Carolina, you're going to a team where, let's just face it, he was probably his agent. Speaking of agent talk, he was looking somewhere where I can get some carries.
Yeah.
And, the McCaffrey has not stayed healthy there. So that's probably a better situation for him. And then, was he a product of the system? Did he fit? Because think about it. Every running back we plugged in, with the exception of Adrian Peterson, who I think was just trying to do too much and has lost it. I think every other running back we plugged in really did. Yeah, they didn't have the threat of Derrick Henry, but you didn't see a drop off, if that makes sense from that. So what's the product of the system? As far as blessing game, I'll be honest. I think Carter, is that his name? Tony Carter.
Tony Carter.
Yeah. I think he took his spot last year until he got hurt or got COVID, whichever one he went on the list. I think his spot. Now I don't think they use blessing game the way he should have been used, because we've seen that the man has some hands. He can catch and all, but I think that release there goes to show that this team this coming year needs a fullback. We can care less about about catching. We want you to block. And I just think Carter, the few games when he was the lead blocker, he was laying that hat on linebacker. So I think you see him do that. And then depending on what we continue to do with the tight end, I think that's why you see Blasting Game move, because think about it. Blasting Game was kind of our short pass game that we just didn't take advantage of. And that's what we want the tight ends to be able to do. So I think that's why you saw him get released. But again, I think Carter, I think you got somebody on the roster already that can fit that mold of a smash mouth fullback that you want.
Yeah, and I agree with that. The thing about it is too, and I'll go back on Foreman just for a second, and you think about this for a minute, guys. And I'm not saying it's a bad way to transition to, but a lot of the teams in the AFC got some gunslingers now, right? That is the offense of the league. Nobody runs a smash mouth football offense like we do. Mm-hmm. But do you think with Hilliard and the thinking behind it is, one, of course, you don't need another Derrick Henry in the backfield, but two, as you mentioned, G Will, he can catch the ball, he's good out of the backfield, he's got speed. More of a you can open the offense just a little bit more with him in the game. At times when he's spelling Derrick Henry. But I agree with Dion too, is that you could have used Foreman to take some of that wear and tear off Derrick Henry in the game, especially late in the season, in the second half, and so forth. But anyway, I
think that it just goes to show, and I hate it. I hope I'm wrong. But that just goes to show the stubbornness of this team, where they're going to make Derrick Henry be the workhorse, and I don't think they're going to learn from their lesson from last year. Because I absolutely agree with Dion. Hilliard to me is not the 10 to 15 carry guy spelling, because you need to spell Derrick Henry about that much at the beginning of the season so that he's ready for you December and January. Right. And not having another 1-2 punch like that, I think that's a telltale sign that we just don't ride this horse until he falls off. So.
And then one of G Witt's boys, Cruikshank, we hadn't heard anything about him yet, but the sign is he won't be back either. And that's a hurt to the special teams, as you mentioned, Jay Lou. He was a good gunner on the edge. He really specialized in it. Not only that, but he came in at times when they ran the 3 safety package. Yeah. I think about what he did to Kelsey.
Yeah,
locked him up. And so you got to miss
Kittle,
that.
Man.
Yeah,
George Kittle, same thing.
Yeah, George Kittle. So you're gonna miss that. Who's to say they won't sign him back? But as of right now, he hadn't had a contract extended to him that we know of. And so. Go ahead.
You don't know what he's going to be doing if any other teams have reached out to him as well. I mean, it's wide open for him, so you just don't know what's going on. But that was my biggest concern with losing Cruikshank. I've always been high on him as far as special teams are concerned. But last year, I think, like you said, in that 3 safety package with him covering tight ends, it was a huge benefit.
It was.
I mean, we got to be honest about it. If you lock down Kelsey and Kittle as a safety, you've done a tremendous job. And I don't know if they're just trying to let him test the market to see, and it may be to where they could actually be able to match somebody or whatever. But that salary cap situation that the Titans are in right now has really got them slightly hamstrung as far as everything they can do.
Right. And so let's talk about some players released, and I'm gonna get into this comment because it'll segue into Julio Jones. So Will says, do we think Julio should have been given a second chance, being that him and Tanny didn't get any chemistry because of COVID and the offseason injury that I'm not the offseason, but what Julio had as far as his hamstring training camp issues that he was having as far as health. And so, J. Lou, I mean, what do you think? Do you think Julio deserved a second year? I really think it came down to his health and his money.
So we're going to be paying Mr. Robert Woods $13 million.
Right.
Julio would have been 14.3. Releasing him afterwards is 9.5. So basically, you're getting a cheaper version of him, Robert Woods, for $4 million and some change. I agree. I think it came down to age and the contract. I thought they would have gave him another shot, but I was glad to see him get Robert Woods. And again, we were running the J Rob special. ACL tears, come sign them up. Sign him up. So you're hoping that all indications are he's on track to be healthy for camp. But you got to think the last two. Just think about last year. You had Taylor Lewan tear his ACL, I think, in October.
Right.
He still wasn't healthy until maybe November, December. He came around. Bud tore his in December, if I'm not mistaken, and they had to shut him down after training camp because he tried to rush himself back. And then Robert tore his in November. So, each player in each position heals a little different, but you hope to see him give you about 85-90% at the beginning of the season, because I don't think we can afford right now with the wide receiver room to wait on him to come through. The question that is going to be there still, though, is the chemistry. So, I got to thinking about this over the last few days and stuff about Tannehill and all the stuff about him. I think the one thing, and not to make no excuse, but sometimes you just try to get in these guys' minds. This time last year, everybody, and Tannehill even said it himself during the beginning of training camp. What was the big thing out there that you had to make sure you did to be a good team player? Take the COVID shot. And if you remember, Tannehill reluctantly took it. So, you wonder how much internally that bothered him a little bit from a concentration standpoint and trying to build chemistry out there on the field. It's easy it's like riding a bike with AJ. Y'all been doing it forever. Yeah, but everybody else, you wonder how much of that toll during the summer that he missed that you just couldn't catch up as you're in the season. So you hoping that you'll be able to see Robert at least participate in some mini camps with him to build that chemistry. Because if not, we're looking at the exact same thing that was just mentioned about Julio, that they won't be able to build that chemistry. So that's what you're shooting for. You got a younger version. He's 29, some great hands. And, the one thing that's probably better than Julio, he's a run blocker. He's a run blocker receiver.
Facts.
That's what the Titans built their wide receivers on, is being able to run block. So it's just all about his health right now.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree with you, because the bottom line is, in all honesty, I was kind of hoping they were going to give Julio a second chance. But in all honesty, when they made the decision to release him, I wasn't that surprised because really with his injury history and the way the season went last year, first of all, let's remember, he didn't participate in training camp at all. And he didn't do anything at all. And then he was in and out the entirety of the season. So as far as building that chemistry, him and Tannehill never really got to be on the same page about anything. He had a couple of shining moments, but nothing really consistent. So, and plus, again, like you mentioned, J. Lou, his age. Julio, I think, is going to be 34, something like that. I think
33.
33, and you're getting Robert Woods at 29. So you're getting a slightly younger guy coming off an injury, but rumor says he's going to be ready for minicamp, which is huge. The other thing about it, again, he's definitely a better blocker in the running game, but the more important thing, the precise routes he runs.
Yes.
Look, I'm not taking anything away from Cooper Kupp, but the bottom line was, in LA, Robert Woods was the go-to guy for the quarterback, especially for Jared Goff when he was there. He would throw to Cooper Kupp, but Robert Woods was the go-to guy. And Robert Woods, a couple of years in LA, had to carry it by himself because Cooper Kupp got hurt and was out for the season. So we just have to wait and see. That ACL injury is tricky, like you said, J. Lou. Sometimes it depends on the player and the position. My concern is him being such a precise route runner, and the way he runs it, that means he's cutting a lot. So the question is going to be, how is he going to step out on that knee and make those cuts without worrying about blowing it up again?
Go ahead. I'm sorry. No, I was going to say, I agree. Dion said you can trust the healing factor and time window of ACL, but hamstrings are too unpredictable and sporadic. And I agree with that.
That's a great point.
That's a great point, Dion, because the hamstrings are so tricky, man. The only way you can let them heal is by rest, and we all know during the season. It's hard for a player to get rest week in and week out. And it's not, but you know, I do think, you know, we talked about this during the week, texting back and forth. You know, some of us, two of us, called the wide receiver room terrible.
Yeah.
I was one of them before they got Robert Woods. And so I feel better about that. Plus, they added Hooper. And so, you know, we'll talk some more about that in just a second. But I do think there is opportunity out there because Jamison Crowder's out there. He's a slot guy, played for the Jets. He had 80 catches last year. I'm not saying he's going to get that here, but he could. You got Cole Beasley. You know, he's a good route runner. He's a good slot guy. He's 33 years old. Crowder's 29. And then you got Jarvis Landry. I don't know if you want to bring him in, but again, he's a guy that can play inside. He does the dirty work. He makes the tough catches. 29 years old, still in his prime. And so there's still some room to add if they want to do that. You know, we might just see some more ACLs getting drafted, Jameson Wilson and Meacham. From Alabama. And so, you know, we'll wait to see. But like I said, I do like the additions, but I do think there's still room to make some more improvements in the wide receiver room. And I won't say they're terrible. I'll say they're okay now.
Yeah, they're average right now.
right. And so, you know, here's the problem though, guys. As we move to the as we're talking about players released. So Saffold, Lamb, you know, those guys, Quisenberry's gone. And so my concern, and we talked about this too, is offensive line because we still don't have the right tackle solidified, right? And so Lael Collins signs with the Bengals today for 3 years. So the Bengals have remade their offensive line. They addressed that weakness. They know Joe Burrow could not take another 70-sack season. And so still some guys out there for right tackle. But the concern is that, in my opinion, I don't know if they want to spend the money. You know, there's a couple of guys, Tyrod Armstrong, I believe his name, played for the Saints. He's 31 years old. He's one of the top tackles in the league, had a passer rating of 90%, pass block rating, win rate. And then there's a guy from the Pats. I got to look at his name real quick. But there's some guys out there that could be potentially brought in to fulfill that need. I don't know, you know, the luck in drafting right tackles here the last couple of seasons. You know, Rendez is a guard, maybe. You know, he did do good against Bosa. When we played the 49ers, you got to give him his credit. But Jay Lou, I mean, you know, the right tackle still got to be a concern for the football team, especially after we lost, you know, the depth that we had, and then Saffold at left guard. But there's still some question marks on this offensive line.
Yeah, right tackle has been a problem since we didn't pick up the fifth-year option of Conklin. Let's just call it a spade.
Yeah,
that's what it boils down to. Then we drafted the Panda, and he phased on out the NFL. I you know, because I think you see Dylan go to left guard. That's just I think they put Dylan on the left side with Taylor to kind of solidify that. I think the unsung hero signing, and you love to see a player that wanted to be here. Ben Jones was the best offseason signing for the year. If you got your center back who can at least give some communication and all on the line, that can help some stability on there. But we just got to get better up the middle. But right tackle, again, thankfully, is not his blind side. But you don't want to. We've got to get our offense in a position where we're not continuously keeping the tight end in because our five up front can't block. So it's me personally, and me and G Witt talked about this yesterday. It wouldn't shock me if J. Rob drafts offensive line yet again. But the difference this is where you're really gonna see how he values the draft, because we know he's terrible on some of these first round picks. But I think this year you have to draft a first rounder that's going to be on the field in August. I can't think of the last first round draft pick he's had that played right away. And whether that's wide receiver or offensive lineman, we're not in the window where we can afford somebody to take their time and grow and develop. They got to come in and learn right on the field. And whether you decide to go offensive lineman or wide receiver, and again, it would not shock me, given where we're picking at, depending on how the board drops, to see us trade back out of that number one spot and pick him up some 2s and 3s where he's had, you know, better value and a little bit better success there. But yeah, that offensive line definitely scares me right now.
Yeah, G Whip, I'm gonna let you go. I want to get this in. And you're right, J. Lou, and Deion makes a great point. Again, Deion, man, we appreciate you being back on the show, brother. You know, the right tackle out of Northern Iowa, Trevor Penning, he is a monster. You know, if you guys remember the Senior Bowl, this guy is nasty.
Yes,
he is physical, 6'7", 321. I mean, I don't know if he's there at 26. He might be a second round guy, but this guy's nasty, and he would bring something to the table that you have to potentially look at this guy as a starting right tackle day one. But go ahead, G. Witt. I'm sorry.
Well, I mean, you bring him up, and that's a good point, because one thing J-Rob is known for, he will, pick players that come out of that Senior Bowl or the East-West game or whatever the case may be. But I agree with you, J. Lou, on the offensive line. I would say this, and like I said yesterday, he's rebuilding it for the future. Signing Ben Jones, there are going to be a lot of good offensive linemen in this draft, a lot of good centers, a lot of good interior linemen. So I think that we're going to see that. Tackles, when you step back and look at it, he's got to find somebody that's going to really be a solid backup for Taylor Lewan, because Taylor Lewan is getting long in the tooth. So finding the left tackle, finding the right tackle, I mean, really, you got to get a center. So it's a lot he's got to do with that offensive line. That's why I think I wouldn't be surprised if he went O-lineman, if he had to go with that first round pick. Like you said, he may trade back and try to pick up some picks, because I think the one round we don't have any picks is what, third round?
Second.
Our
second was Julio. Our second was Julio.
So he might, if somebody's desperate enough and wants somebody, he might trade back and try to pick up a second rounder, a couple of second round picks, or whatever the case may be. But one thing I will say about J-Rob that I've always admired about his draft status, the lower rounds is his wheelhouse.
Yes.
Yeah.
He does extremely well in the lower round. I agree with you. The only first rounder he really had that came in and started was Conklin.
Yep.
Dory Jackson came back. I think he played some his rookie year, but
he did.
Corey Davis was a top 5 pick, and he struggled his whole time here. Let's just be real about it. So yeah, he's gonna have to do something better with that first round, and he may just want to trade out of it just to get down and get to more of his wheelhouse with the second, third, and fourth round picks.
Yeah.
Hey, Ed,
go ahead.
My bad. The guy
ahead.
you was bringing up from Northern Iowa, I'll keep an eye on it. I'll tell you one thing that I think you see us draft, and I know it was brought up in the chat and we talked about it. Whoever's the right tackle is going to be a better pass protection right tackle than run blocker. If you think about it, Quisenberry, believe it or not, was a top 10 run blocking right tackle.
He was, but he was worse than sacks, right?
But the most sacks in his position. So I think you see us get, again, it goes back to what I said. You want to have one that can probably pass protect a little bit better, because we know we like running off that left side. And that's why I think you see Dylan go to left guard, because that's his strong suit is running. So you got him and Taylor over there, we want to run to the left, and you got that right side where we can have somebody can do pass pro, where we can then allow our tight ends to eat up the middle of the field instead of chipping.
But I'm gonna tell you something, man. I don't know. Maybe I'm not looking at it correctly or whatever, but I'm just wondering about Aaron Brewer, man, because he filled in strong when Sappho was out.
He did.
And he's a mauler, man.
Yeah.
I mean, he's a straight up mauler as far as the run blocking game is concerned. So I don't know how this is going to pan out. We have to see what the coach says. What's his name? Keith. God, I can't remember
his name. Yeah, I know you're talking about. But...
yeah, the offensive line coach, to see how he shakes it all out and everything. But I don't know, man. I wouldn't be surprised if I saw Aaron Brewer going at that left guard spot.
Yeah, and I don't disagree with you at all. But one thing we do know is this is a deep draft for offensive linemen, probably one of the deepest ones in years. And so a lot of talent out there, still some free agents out there. So we'll see. And I agree that J-Rob usually makes his hay in those later rounds, man. He finds those diamonds in the rough. David Long Jr. was one of the ones that's a diamond in the rough, man.
Yeah, we talked about that.
What a find, right? What a find. And
2019 is that's going to cost them next year.
Right. It is going to cost them, because you got to pay some people next year.
Yeah.
We got to figure out how they going to pay these guys and keep the core here. So I've been giving Deion a lot of props. And I'm going to say this about Deion that I don't agree with. He says Will Fuller. Have you seen Will Fuller play a full season last how many years?
He's never played a full season.
Come on, Deion, man. Come on.
I think it'll be announced later today. He's probably signing with Deshaun Watson in Cleveland.
Yeah, somebody brought that up in the chat.
Did they? Yeah. He's probably going to Cleveland.
But so let's talk about what we did retain, because I think it's very important at this particular position that we kept our front intact. Harold Landry and Pop-Tart, it was good that we signed Harold Landry back. He got his money, he got paid. You know, Tier Tart was another staple on that defensive front that was resurgent from the season before, and you had to bring those guys back, right? And now, going forward, you're gonna have to figure out how to keep Jeffrey Simmons, which I know they will. They're gonna have to pay him, and they're gonna have to figure it out because next year, he's due. But again, we already mentioned Ben Jones, the anchor of the offensive line, Fat Randy, bringing the kicking game back. Another major signing back, Morgan Cox, long snapper.
Mm-hmm.
How big was he last season in the special teams game, considering what we had before that, how we couldn't even snap the ball at times.
Yes.
And so some big signings, and then Dion's boy, which I think he's just like Craig Ackerman, J. Lou. How does Logan Woodside stay on his football team? How does he stay on his football team? He might be the next Tom Brady. Dion said, give him a chance, man. I don't know. They see something.
Vrabel loves him, man. Vrabel loves him.
Right.
I ain't figured out yet why, but
yeah, they see something in him, man. I'm not sure what it is, but man, he has yet to be beat out by anybody brought in.
By anybody.
So, in the last 2 or 3 years. So he's still here. But we talk about the running back room, Jordan Wilkins. And so J. Lou, you and I was talking about this a little bit during the week. He gets a full camp. We'll see what he can do. He's a solid running back. He had a pretty decent stint with the Colts. Trenton Cannon, he's more of a special teams type guy, running back guy. I see him as a mold of a Hilliard type player. And then Austin Hooper, that's a big signing for me. Austin Hooper, they showed a clip of him on Twitter. he stiff armed somebody when he was at Falcons, man. Yeah. So he'll fit in right nicely with the Titans. Jamarico Jones, offensive line for Seattle, play guard and tackle. And then, of course, we talked about Robert Woods. So, guys, what do you think, G, about these current new Titans that we got for this 2022 season, and plus what we retained from last season?
Well, in all honesty, I think what we retained was actually pretty good. Again, we've already talked ad nauseum about Ben Jones signing back the glue of the offensive line, which, and the fact that he's been durable. Right. He's one of the few players that actually played every game last year. And even though he had to come out a couple of times, he was still steady in that center position. I think I would say the Austin Hooper deal, it's a wait and see for me, man. It's a wait and see. I'm sorry, but like I said when we discussed it, texting back and forth and everything, he came from Atlanta, man. And right now, J-Rob is 0 for 2 out of Atlanta. So,
well, to be fair, I think Hooper came from Cleveland last.
He came from Cleveland last.
Yeah. So maybe that Atlanta washed off of him.
he was drafted by Atlanta when he came out. Yeah. So, like I said, J-Rob is 0 for 2 out of Atlanta right now. So we'll see what goes on. But in all honesty, I think some of the signings, again, Cox signing back was huge for special teams. I thought that was a good move. Of course, the defense signing Harold Landry was huge. Jay Lou, you called it. They wouldn't franchise him. And when we saw the franchise number, you understood why. Yeah. So signing him back, I thought was huge because basically you've kept that front seven intact. And that's going to definitely should help midget out as far as giving a little time for these DBs to get ready to play through the remainder of the season because man, let's be honest about it, man. It was a total 180 with that front seven from 2020 to 2021, man. It was a 180. I mean, you think about it, 2020 they only had 19 sacks. The playoff game, they had 11.
Right.
Yes.
Yes. Will says he's Vrabel's. I'm sorry, J. Rob's 0-3 because he lost Arthur Smith to Atlanta.
That's true. That's true.
Yeah, but I wouldn't call. I'm just talking about pulling from Atlanta, not sending to. I think. Right. I agree. I know Ryan Tannehill missed Arthur Smith tremendously last year because it was you could tell on the offense. I thought Trenton Cannon was a pretty good signing for special teams and everything. The question is going to be, is he going to be returning punts? Is he going to be returning kickoffs? what's going to happen with that little deal. Of course, Jabbar's board, Pop-Tart. I thought that was a good re-signing and everything. The question mark I had, in all honesty, which I would say I was surprised about, and I think we all were, Jeff Swain, man.
Yeah, and so I
understand.
Yeah,
I understand, but I mean, and maybe it's just the blocks that he misstood out to us so much that we didn't see all of the good stuff he did. But I mean, the man missed way too many blocks.
Yeah. So my only, maybe if we decide to go 12 personnel, which is 2 tight ends,
right.
And Hooper plays that, not to compare him to Jonnu, but plays that type of role where we want him to be receiving, and Swain is just focusing on pass pro instead of trying to run block as much. Maybe it's a difference, but I didn't see a big. I mean, even at the H-back spot when they rolled him to the backfield, my guy that got hope, Michael was better at that than that. So
absolutely.
There's something. Maybe Swain's just good in the classroom, because there's got to be. I mean, they gave him what, $3.5 million, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah.
To come back, so that's quite a bit of money for that tight end spot.
Yeah, it was a 1-year deal, but Jamarco Jones, I thought was a pretty decent signing, because that gives you that swing guy that you're going to need.
Mm-hmm. That's right.
I thought that was pretty good. Even though I've never really been all that impressed with the offensive line from Seattle, I just think signing that guy is going to be a swing guy. Buster Skrine coming back, I think, was a good move. He played pretty good for us while he was here. So, especially with Jackrabbit being gone. And, it's funny about it. When they signed Jordan Wilkins back, I was like, man, I really don't remember him.
you got to think back to that COVID break when they had, Derrick Henry wasn't back yet, and something happened, and they brought Wilkins in. He was on special teams for the week he was on there, and then they put him back down to the practice squad after this. So he got a big penalty in the game too. I don't know if you remember that or not. So.
But the thing about it is, what I think, in all honesty, like I said, with the cap being what it is, and with the draft being what it is, I just think what J. Rob and the front office, what they're trying to do is get better as cheaply as they possibly can. They kept some guys that are serviceable while not outstanding, like a Jeff Swain, and brought in people who they could get in. They addressed some issues. They took some risk. I think with Robert Woods, that's the biggest risk they took, but especially coming off an ACL injury. But I think that's the main reason. I mean, the good thing about the Robert Woods deal, you only gave up a 6th-round pick in 2023.
Yeah,
right. So, and I agree. The only thing is that Jeff Swain, I don't know if I can understand, because y'all saw that video that I shared with y'all this week, and man, that guy, he was playing Olay out there while he was blocking.
Absolutely.
Several times.
I don't know. We'll see. We'll see what happens. Bringing in competition sometimes helps with, because if you really think about it, him and Michael should have been 1A and he wasn't 1A. So they was trying to get Ferguson to be 1A and he wasn't 1A. So Swain kind of took that 1A role last year. And with Austin Hooper being added to the roster, that might make him put a little bit more time in the weight room and work on his blocking in this offseason to get.
Well, my question is going to, and I kept trying to find some information about how is Austin Hooper with his blocking, or is he more of a off the line tight end?
Well, so with him and Njoku last year, he played more of the role until he got a little banged up, and so he was on the field a lot of the times. Cleveland had a great run game as well. And so I'm not gonna say he's one of the best run blockers, because he's not. He's more, he's known for his hands, his route running. But he is a decent run blocker. He's better to me. He's better than Ferguson.
He's better than Swain. Yes, he's better than Ferguson. He's better than Swain.
I'll be honest with you, it ain't hard to be better than Ferguson.
Right, and it's not hard to be better than Swain either, really.
He's what they wanted Anthony Fersker to be.
That's exactly
is what I think. I think he's what they wanted him to be.
That's right. And so I'm gonna get some more comments here. And so Dion says, can we believe that people are griping and moaning about how much money that Landry got paid? So we kind of talked about that a little bit. Here's what I think, Dion, and I'll let you guys chime in afterwards. And then J. Lou and I, we kind of talked about this a little bit. And you too, Z. I believe the reason why people are griping is because really, if you look at Harold Landry, he's only a run defender rush guy. He's not a coverage guy. We've seen when he's put in coverage, that's his Achilles heel. he wasn't asked to do that in college. He hadn't really been asked to do that too much early in his career with the Titans. But here lately, they've been dropping him in coverage, which is not his strong suit. And so I can see where people will complain about how much money he got, because really when you pay a guy like that, even Bud Dupree, and Bud Dupree has some numbers to back up his money. I'm not saying Harold Landry hadn't, because he had 2 years. He has double-digit sacks if you add the playoffs from the previous season, right? Mm-hmm. And so, but I think his coverage game is what people really question, because, he can play the run. Yeah, he can rush the passer, but he can't drop in coverage very well. And so what do y'all think about that question that Deion had posted?
I agree, because when he got paid pass rusher money, and you think of these pass rushers, he doesn't fit that mold. I will say, though, when you step back and look at the AFC, the one advantage that the Titans have is no other if we can get our offense to run how we want it, which is smash mouth, run the ball, set up play action. There's not a defense in the league that is built to do that, because they're all built to play nickel and dime now, because we're just passing all over the field.
That's right.
So that's one advantage we have on offense. And then what we did, I think, in defense by what Landry affords you by bringing him back is, and we saw it last year, it allows you to get pressure with 4 and drop 7 back against the Pat Mahomes of the world and confuse them.
Yes.
So I think that's what the Landry signing did. You get a whole nother year of Bud. Not like Bud gets to work out this offseason.
That's right.
He didn't get to work out last season. He was rehabbing. Right. So he gets to do that. He gets a full off season. You got Big Jeff that's going to be healthy, because Jeff had an ankle problem since week 9 last year.
Right.
So you got him back. Landry said he had a hamstring issue last year, so you got him healthy. And Ed, you called it this time last year about Danico Archery. He's in the perfect role. Now, I think what you see, with all of them healthy, you'll see Danico play outside a little bit more. I think you'll see a little bit more disguise and some more games up front. Mm-hmm. I think, like you said, we said everybody picked up on the stunts and the twists they were doing. So I think you'll see this year them be a little bit more creative with everybody being healthy. But I think, they complaining when you see the money, and he's got a team-friendly contract.
He does.
But it allows you to compete, because right now when you look at it, we can't compete with Kansas City. We can't compete with Buffalo or Cincinnati, because we don't have the flashy offense that's going to put up 40 points quick in a game. Where we compete with them at is that our defense is going to stop them, where our offense can do what their defenses can't do, and that's let Derrick Henry run it down the throat. So,
and I agree with you totally, because the thing about it is, I had no problem with the way they signed Harold Landry with the money that he got. Mm-hmm. I think the thing people forget about it, over the past, let's just be real about it, since his rookie season, he's been the most consistent and dependable,
durable.
Yes, that's right.
Yes.
That's right. Yes.
That's right. What we have to remember is that there were seasons where he played like 96% of the defensive snaps.
Right. Yes. Right.
I mean, he didn't come out the game. There was one. Was it 2019? I think he was on track to have. I think he had 10 sacks or whatever, but he ended up fading towards the end of the season simply because he was worn out.
Yeah.
So I think what we saw towards the end of the season in December and against Cincinnati, what you saw was the fact that they had to stop both Bud Dupree and Harold Landry,
while containing Jeff and Danico
Autry and Pop-Tart.
Yes.
That's a recipe for disaster for an offense. What you're going to see a lot of offenses do against us this year, and I was just thinking about this other day, it's going to be a lot of quick passes.
Yes.
A lot of quick passes. Mm-hmm. A lot of screens, a lot of quick passes. That's why Anthony Mitchell is going to have to earn his money this year, because the secondary is going to be ready.
Right. Yeah, we have to play. We can't play this bump off coverage. I will say, what you want to see from our D-line coach, we've got to see what Weaver can be, because to your point about durability, if you go back and look at Bud Dupree, he was averaging 80 to 90% almost his last couple of years in Pittsburgh. Mm-hmm. And you don't want that wear and tear on your guys like that. So if we can get Weaver and a couple more Rice and get them in there where they can spell these guys, that longevity, that's why, again, Pop-Tart was a big signing, because we've got the spell guys in the middle. We've got to get them on those edge rushers, and come December and January, them guys will still look like they're fresh.
Yeah, and there's some edge guys out there in the draft, man. Some young guys that are coming out, some good size. I'm thinking about the guy from Texas A&M, 6'5", 263. Ohio State, you got another guy, 6'3", 254. So there's some guys out there that can provide that depth. And you mentioned Weaver coming back, and Weaver was having a good camp until he, in the first, he learned a lesson. He came out and they stonewalled him a few times, and he ended up getting hurt early on in the season. So kind of derailed him. And then I'm just curious to see with him coming back, and then Farley coming back, what kind of a full off season for both of those guys, rehabbing and getting back into shape and getting ready to go. Because Farley's gonna need a lot more work, because of course he already missed a lot of football, and we saw him struggling a lot, particularly against the Bills. The game he got hurt, he was it was very telling that he was rusty, because he was out of position, he was overrunning a bunch, and his coverage was just terrible. And so
his technique was horrible.
His technique was horrible, and so a lot of good young talent potentially that we have, and so we have to see what's going to happen. So Dion says, not comparing the two, but does Von Miller cover a lot? No, Von Miller doesn't. He mainly
doesn't.
plays the run and rushes the passer.
He mainly plays. He's mainly almost a third down D lineman now.
Absolutely.
Von Miller got paid off his reputation.
He got
that
paid
contract
off
he
his
just
reputation.
signed.
Yeah, and he's chasing another ring. And he looks at the landscape, said, who's gonna give him the most money to help get him ring? And there you go, Buffalo. So, but thank y'all for joining us for another episode of Halftime Adjustments. So just looking at the Titans draft picks they got left now, they got a first and a third, 2 4s, a fifth, and 1 6 now, since they traded one of the 6 for Robert Woods, which I think was a steal if he's healthy. And because he fits the mold of the Titans receivers. I do think they still need to add another receiver veteran before the season starts, just to help be that guy. Austin Hooper could be that guy now, that safety blanket for Tannehill when he knows he's got to pick up the first down. Because AJ's gonna get double regardless, right? We know that. Yes. And Robert Woods, he can get, but he's a good route runner. So it's gonna be interesting dynamic, because we hadn't had a receiver like Robert Woods around here in a long time. You think about the Derek Mason mode. We hadn't had that type of guy in a long time. And AJ Brown can run routes good, but he's going to go deep. He's going to go the deep crossing routes, the deep post routes, the corner routes. He's going to be that guy. But Robert Woods can be that guy that run across the middle and run those routes like Derek Mason, like I mentioned. So, and bring that toughness to that position. So guys, so busy first week.
Yes.
In free agency, man, a lot to still go. With the draft coming up next month, and it's exciting. Football's here. We took some time off, but now the season is cranked back up for us. So.
Hey, man, look, I know y'all talked about the Alabama receivers, but I still say you can, if you can, you draft on them receivers out of Ohio State, man.
They got a bunch of them coming
I'm telling you, man, those jokers are actually, I watched them play, man. I'm like, these jokers, man, they play some serious ball. Now, I will say this, they are mainly possession receivers. That's the thing about them. They're possession receivers, but I think if you sign Robert Woods, if you can draft a good possession receiver as a rookie and bring him in, whether it's in the 3rd or 4th round, then you do that. But the one thing the Titans are going to have to do, and I don't know if they're going to do it in this draft, they're going to try to wait for next year. They are going to have to draft a QB.
They're going to have to draft
a quarterback, man.
Yeah, and there's not a lot of them out there, but
I don't know if they got one you really like.
The
guy from Liberty won't be there. The guy from Ole Miss probably won't be there. They're not worth sitting a year. Because Tannehill's got a year left. Next year you can get out of his contract and not be in as much hurt as you are this year. But yeah, you definitely are correct on that. We've got to find, and you hope, considering that, if you think about our team, we've got a championship caliber defense that's pretty much, when they find a way to extend Jeff, you got that defense locked up for another 2-3 years. You're hoping that you can be in a position where you could use some draft capital to maybe trade up next year to get a rookie quarterback that can come and start day one and play on that rookie contract. Because if you look at the Bengals, you don't want to be terrible like the Bengals, but the Bengals, they loaded up their team because he's on a rookie contract. You got the Chargers did the exact same thing. You even got New England that's doing the same thing. So a lot of these teams are figuring out, if you can build around get you a good quarterback and build around them on that first contract, you can buy yourself a Super Bowl or buy a good caliber team. And we're in that position right now. We've just got to get we've got to get Tannehill to just be a game manager and not throw it away.
What's the cap look like, J. Lou? What's the cap for the Titans look like right now?
So technically, the Titans are over the cap. They're about $6 million over because Julio's number doesn't come off until January 1st.
June 1st.
So June 1st. June 1st. I'm sorry. So when that comes off, you're looking at them being possibly $2 million to the good. So that's still not enough because you need about $2.5 million just to have your rookies, your rookie pool, and then you still got to have this knock on wood and hope that we ain't got to spend 91 players again like we did last year because you still got to them. So some things to still keep an eye on that just haven't probably happened yet, but still can happen. I personally don't believe right now. I still think that they don't cut him. I think you bring Taylor Lewan back. I think you hear a restructure for Taylor soon. If not now, it'll be June 1st. Because again, Taylor's carrying. If you do it after June 1st, that's almost a $12 million savings that he can give you. No, I'm sorry, $6 million for Taylor. You might hear a restructure on Bud. If you restructure Bud after June 1st, you can save $11 million there. Kevin Byard, you restructured him last year. You don't want to do it again, but if you restructure him, that can give you $7 million. And then Tannehill, you really don't want to restructure again because his guarantees. But if you do, you can almost get $21 million there. So, I mean, they did the one on Zach Cunningham, and that was to get them under the number right then, which I think was a great call. I mean, that absolutely can end up being the steal that protects that position for the next 4 years.
Right.
You got a 6th-round pick that you're gonna have to eventually pay it another year or two. That's fine. And then you picked up a Pro Bowl, All-Pro caliber one for nothing. You got him on waiver wires, and to restructure his $10 million that he had guaranteed. So I still think you hear a couple of restructures come up from some of those bigger ones for that sake. And again, like I said, the cap. If it's me, I think that before the season starts, you possibly see a extension for AJ. I think you're in a better position to probably give, if you don't extend Jeffrey this year, you're in a better position to pick up his 5th-year option because the 5th-year option for the D tackle will be a little cheaper than it is for the wide receiver. But it's better from a cap standpoint if you go ahead and try to extend AJ. And I think when you saw the numbers that came out for Devontae Adams' contract, that was kind of, first of all, the one Jacksonville screwed up the whole market.
They did. Christian Kirk, man.
They screwed up the whole market. But I think when you finally saw the true number come out for Devontae Adams, it kind of level set it a little bit again. So I'm thinking you see AJ, if you extend him now, and again, you need to extend him this offseason. Don't let him play this year and the number go up. But if you extend him now, I think you can get him on about 22 to 24 per year, which is a friendly number for this team. And that will buy them some time as well. But they still got to, again, the cap. All you got to do is look at the Saints to realize that the cap is just what it is. The Saints and the Rams was $60 million over the cap, and they ain't released no players. It's just a lot of restructuring, where eventually you're going to have to pay the piper. It's just how long you can do that. But I think you see a couple of restructures from, like I said, the pre wouldn't shock me, Byard and definitely Taylor. And then I would extend AJ
before Simmons.
Before Simmons, yeah, I'd extend him before Simmons, only because Simmons, again, his 5th-year option number for where he was picked and all is not going to be as significantly high as AJ Brown's would be.
Yeah, and again, like I said, 2019 is going to cost him because you got 5 guys from that draft that are starting that are major contributors to the team.
And I will say, G Witt, you love to say that J-Rob is building for the long term. Yeah. So the cap went up, 16 million, I think this year, to 208. It's expected to blow up again next year. So and what people don't understand is when you have leftover money, it rolls over to next year. So if we can get by this year with what we got and that's why you would extend some of those guys out. If you can get by what you got now and you got the core of your team locked up, when that cap blows up next year, then you got probably a little bigger bank to play with some of those 4 or 5 key guys that you want to try to extend.
Yeah.
I mean, that's what you want to, right? You want to build a solid core to make your team competitive year in, year out. You don't, everybody says the window's now, and I get that because the talent level of this team is higher than it's ever been, right?
Yeah.
But we want a franchise that's every year, and I hate to always refer to the Patriots, but we want that same type of franchise that every year we're a threat to win the AFC. Yes. J. Lou, do you work for the Titans front office? The captain, Dion. Let me tell you, buddy. Hey, so let me say this, man. Let me say this real quick. So if y'all didn't figure out last season when we was bringing out some of this information that this is legit on here, you gotta know, man. We are legit.
We broke some stuff over here, man.
We know some stuff over here. We got some good information. J. Lou is he's in it because he's in it.
Yeah.
And so I'll say it like that, but yeah, Dion, he's real versed in that. That's his expertise. So anytime you want to talk about cap space and contracts, he is the man to talk to because he's got it all. He got it all. He knows what he's talking about. Man. And y'all, hey, just go back and look at some of the previous shows we did toward the end of the year. We were spot on about everything except for the Harold Landry thing. We said he was,
which I was technically right.
Right, you
were
technically
right because I said
right.
The only thing I was wrong on, I thought they would cut him. I mean, I didn't think they would sign him back, but I knew they wouldn't franchise tag him.
Right.
But you were glad to see that they worked out a contract with him. But I knew just from the number he wasn't getting the tag.
Yeah, I was the one that said they might because they did it to Derrick Henry, but that gave him time to work it out. But they worked it out before then. But I thought, J. Lou, you were spot on with that one. So, I mean, we hit the nail on the head. But the thing about it is, I'm just looking forward to this season. Like you said, Eddie, what people have to remember is that when you go back and look at the history of the NFL, Pittsburgh, San Francisco, the Patriots, you're talking about teams that are ultra competitive, always vying for a championship year in and year out. That's what J-Rob is building. So I that's the reason why, again, every offseason, I try not to panic because I'm like, what's the plan? Because 2-14, 3-13, I was there. So I'm like, and I'm going to keep bringing that up because you got to remember that when people are losing their mind talking about we need to fire J-Rob, you got to remember before he came here,
trash.
2-14, 3-13. I always tell people this. I knew J-Rob was going to be good with his first year with us. 2 days after the Super Bowl, he cut Michael Griffin. This movie made it history.
That's G Wiz's favorite Titans player of all time. I'll tell you. But beside him and Clowney, but I don't know who's the best.
Hey, but I'm serious though. Because I mean, think about it. We were all saying it for years about Michael Griffin. Don't get me wrong. We all said it. And
I think the one thing I like about him, you like to see a general manager who will cut. He admits when he has wrongs. We saw Beasley get cut in. We threw away $20 million on Beasley and Clowney. I think he took a gamble. You want to see him take a gamble and then still try to fix it. We took a gamble on Julio. I mean, at the end of the day, a second round pick is what you gave up, a second and a fourth. You gave it up. If it worked, it worked. It's fine. If not, hey, let's cut our losses. You give up a 6th round pick. The last 10 seasons, the only 6th round pick that hit has been David Long Jr. So again, that's a steal. So he's still finding ways. The man has only had a winning team since he's been here. After taking up 13 teams and all. So and again, I think you got a good coaching staff. So I think that's a lot of credit to Amy for what she allows them to do. Because again, Ed, you brought it up at the beginning. Quiet as it's kept, there was an extension signed for both John Robinson and Vrabel got extended this offseason.
Absolutely.
So
Vrabel said it before it even became public.
Yes,
I'm going to be here a long time.
I'm not going anywhere.
But that's the thing about it, though, man. And I look at this because you remember when John Robinson got rid of Malarkey, there were a lot of questions about that, man. Because I mean, we went, like I said, 2-14, 3-13, 97.
Right.
Malarkey went 97.
He got fired.
Malarkey went to the playoffs.
He went to the playoffs and won.
And got fired, right?
Yeah.
And everybody was like, "What's going on?" Right.
And we were wondering about whether Mike Vrabel. But one thing we found out about Mike Vrabel, he's great in managing the team. And what you found this year more than anything else, play something that I only heard about really in Frisco back in when they had their run. Players want to come here and play.
Yeah, I'm gonna tell you, if you get a chance to go out on YouTube and do the NFL mic'd up and do it from the Pro Bowl this past year.
Oh yeah.
It goes to what you just said, G, with how you got, I mean, Pat Mahomes and all them talking about how Vrabel is a dude they'd like to play for just because he's a players type coach.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I will say this too, and we didn't mention it earlier. And so we talk about bringing in Tim Kelly, right, for the offense and to be the passing game coordinator, you know.
Yeah.
So think about this. How effective did he have Davis Mills playing last year? Davis Mills was balling. I'm just saying, and I'm not saying Tannehill is on that level because Tannehill is better than Davis Mills, in my opinion. You know, that could be easily debated, but he had Davis Mills looking like he was a Pro Bowl quarterback
with no AJ Brown caliber receiver,
with no receiver and no offensive line.
Yeah.
Yes.
So, yeah, we'll see. We'll see what happens.
Well, you know, the thing about it too, and in all honesty, I'm waiting to see. The one thing to me that Tannehill, if we're going to talk about him, what he has to do is, and what people I think should remember, one, Tannehill never played in the playoffs till he got here.
That's true.
Never played in the playoffs. And one thing I noticed about Tannehill, especially last year and the previous season and this past season, is that I don't think he fully understands how quicker the game gets in the playoffs as opposed to the regular season. Mm-hmm. And yeah, I know it. It shouldn't be that way.
Did I see my face?
Yeah, I did.
Wait a minute.
I'm just saying it shouldn't be that way.
3 years in a row, he's made the playoffs.
3 years in a row. But remember, the first year he didn't have to do much.
That's true. First year
and he had Arthur Smith. If you go back and look at it, the only game he really played, what you call pretty well, was the Baltimore game.
And he had Arthur Smith. That's a big difference.
Yeah,
we don't have confidence, and I'm not saying that this was what it was, but if he doesn't have confidence in the play calling of his offensive coordinator and the creativity of his offense, because we just go back and look at the film of the Bengals game, and you saw no hot routes, no check downs. I mean, it's not his fault that they weren't running the hot routes on the blitz because they weren't. They running downfield streaks. Yeah. Post on blitzes. They double side. They brought a slot corner and a safety off one side. No hot route by none of the receivers. And that's Julio and AJ. So it's not like they don't know. So again, but we'll see.
Yeah, but still, I will say the one thing I admired about Tannehill this offseason so far is the radio silence.
Oh yeah, he's got work to do.
Yeah, he got work to do. And word was that he before he left the facility, he ordered a ton of film to go back and watch. So I'm gonna wait and see mode on Tannehill. Like we said, Tannehill.
I'm telling y'all, you don't. And I just thought about it like this past week or so. You don't know how much that COVID type stuff up here. And the quarterback is all up because again, there should have been that. We expected a drop off from offensive play calling. Yeah. That's one thing.
I agree.
But play on the field and Tannehill. Let's just think about it again from a COVID standpoint. I remember his press conferences like yesterday in training camp. He was terrible in training camp.
Yep.
And having to come out and talk about that.
How many picks did he throw? He threw a lot of it. And everybody
yeah. So you're hoping that with all that behind him, none of that's going to be front and center this year. You're glad to hear him get that film because I think this is one of those losses at the end of this season where he knew he has to do something different. I think you hate to, we keep talking about Deion's boy, Logan Woodside, but let's just think about the roles reversed. Tannehill has nobody that he's afraid is going to take his job. Mariota had somebody in Tannehill that was waiting to come in and take your job and be starting. So they gotta find. I think the way you push that with Tannehill this year is he probably knows this is his last opportunity to play.
Yeah.
And I think for this franchise. Yeah.
For this, and I think you see a difference come out.
Yeah. Oh yeah, absolutely. And again, I'm just waiting it's a wait and see mode because again, of course, in off season, everybody's thinking they're going to win it all and all that kind of stuff, with the exception of a few teams like Jacksonville and Houston maybe. But the bottom line is, man, you just want to see the improvement on that side of the ball from him and the receivers and the running back and everything, because if the defense improves anymore, dude, so, this team is going to be, it's going to be hard.
I think
for team to beat us.
I think you see the defense getting better next year, and pass coverage in particular.
I do too.
I think you see a better version of Caleb Farley. He's going to be healthy. I think that's going to help you. Christian Fulton is going to come in. He's going to be healthy. He's going to have another year under his belt. He's a starter, and he got a lot of attention his way last season. And then Byers going to do his thing in Hooker. Yeah, to me, we got one of the best safety combos in the NFL.
Oh,
yes. Hands down.
If nothing else, you got one of the smartest safety combos in the NFL.
Yes.
Right.
Because both of those guys are football intelligent through the roof. And that's the thing I like about them. I mean, both of them. Byard and Hooker.
And not to mention, you get an offseason with Zach Cunningham.
Yeah.
So
who came in and fit right in and was balling.
Right.
Yeah.
And so you got a lot of guys that are going to be there, full off season, OTAs, all that. And so another year in the system of Shane Bowen with Swartz, and we'll see what happens. I'm getting excited just thinking about it. But again, it's early, and you don't win in this time of year. Well, you do win because you get the players, right? But you still got to get on the field to play. You got to. Right. But anyway, thank y'all for joining us for another episode of Halftime Adjustments. Man, if we hold on to Cruikshank, it's so. I agree, Dion. We need Cruikshank back. He plays a vital role on this team.
Yes.
I mean, it's not. To your point, G, it's not too many people that lock down Kittles and Kelsey. It's
That's
not.
What I'm saying.
I mean, he had Kelsey, man. Y'all remember he had Kelsey.
Oh yeah,
and David Long was.
Yes,
David Long was talking smack to him, man. He was upset. I mean, it's just one of them things, man. You just get excited about it when you start seeing the moves and everything. And the thing I like I tell everybody, what I like about J. Rob more than anything else, you never know what he's going to do.
Right.
And with a GM, that's one of the things you do like. Exactly. You want to see, especially when they're making good moves. He keeps the local press and pretty much in the dark, especially the old school guys, the Koharskis and everything. They don't find out things till other people find out.
Oh yeah, Vrabel was the same way. They can't stand. They can't stand talking to Vrabel his coach, his press conference, because he'll never say nothing. He's like, "What y'all think?" I mean, you gonna ask me that anyway. But anywho, hey,
you don't get tired and walk out on the press conference. You're like, this is crazy.
Man, appreciate y'all, Willie Walker, Dion, Will, all those that joined us tonight, gave us the comments and questions. If we didn't answer your question, we'll get it, man. We always go back and answer the questions we didn't get asked during the show. But we appreciate y'all joining us tonight. Week 1 of free agency. We'll be back with another show of Halftime Adjustment. Hey, just remember, y'all hear this information off this show. Remember that. Man, look, I can't say it enough. And y'all know it. Y'all have heard it. Y'all have heard it come out of this show in the last few episodes. I mean, not even just a few episodes, but the whole season. Man, we don't drop number facts over here. We don't drop number facts. we be on point from the cap rule to the contracts to people coming back off IR and the whole nine. So anyway, Dion said when we come back, we'll let you know, Dion. Be looking out for it, man. We'll look and see as things move on, as free agency continues to push forward at full speed. And with the draft coming up, a lot of information coming up, man. We'll come back soon as some pro days coming up. We'll be looking at some draft prospects, a lot of stuff out there to talk about. So man, just be looking out for that information for the next show. We'll put it out there. We'll give you the time and the date. And hey, come back and join us, man.
I hate to hear that player in Michigan towards ACL and on his pro day, man.
It wasn't his Achilles.
It was his Achilles.
I'm sorry. Yeah, it was Achilles.
Yeah.
Still, that's bad. That's bad.
Not only was it bad that he got hurt, but here's what was worse to me. They didn't even come and check on the man.
No, they moved the ball. They just picked up the ball and kept going.
What?
Yeah.
So what that tells you, and I do know this, and I never played it down in the NFL, but I do know this: it's a cutthroat business. And if
absolutely,
hey, you get hurt, Next guy up.
Yes.
So-
Yeah. He's hoping to recover well enough to where he might get signed as an undrafted free agent.
Hey,
So that's
Jay,
going to hurt him.
Jay Lou Dion, I think you got an inside track to J Rob, man. he said, tell J Rob to trade back. And
I got you.
He said he must be calling you for all this cap info. No, man. No. Oh, well, I ain't gonna say no. Cause you just never know, Dion. You never know who we talk to on this show.
That's true.
Right.
That's true.
But anyway, thank y'all for joining us tonight. Catch us next time, man, for another live episode. We are out of here, man. Peace.
Peace.
Peace.